Deceit, power, and betrayal collide as a waitress uncovers dark secrets, forcing a wealthy man to choose between the woman he thought he knew and the one who showed him the truth. Before we dive in, tell me where you are watching from in the comments section. I would like to know. The soft murmur of clinking silverware, the low hum of whispers, and the ambient notes of jazz, played by a live band, filled the elegant restaurant. It was the kind of place where the wealthy and influential came to dine, where the polished floors gleamed beneath the overhead chandeliers, and where every patron seemed to be cloaked in an air of importance. At one of the finest tables near the window, Marcus Sinclair, a tall, handsome young man with an air of confidence that spoke of power and influence, sat across from his fiancée, Evelyn. The sparkling diamond on her finger caught the light as she absent-mindedly twirled a strand of her long, platinum blonde hair between her fingers. She was stunning, with features that could have belonged to a model. Sharp cheekbones, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that could disarm anyone. The couple had been together for over a year now, and Marcus had never once questioned his decision to propose. Evelyn was everything he had ever wanted, a perfect match in terms of beauty, sophistication, and charm. Or at least he thought she was. That was until she spoke. "You know, I still can't believe you brought me to this place again," Evelyn said, her voice dripping with disdain. "The food is mediocre at best, and the service—" She trailed off, glancing around the restaurant as if it had insulted her in some way. "Really, Marcus? I thought you had better taste." Marcus smiled politely, trying to brush it off. "I thought you liked it here, Evelyn. It's one of my favorites." She scoffed, her gaze shifting toward the waiter who had just come to their table. Maya. Maya was a young woman in her 20s, black, with tightly coiled hair pulled back into a neat bun. Her uniform, though well-pressed, could not hide the tiredness in her eyes or the exhaustion that hung over her like an invisible cloud. Maya had worked in this restaurant for almost 3 years, juggling double shifts and making sure that every table was served with a smile. But beneath the smile, her life was a different story. Born and raised in a poor neighborhood, Maya's family struggled to make ends meet. Her father, a factory worker, had passed away when she was young, leaving her mother to raise 4 children on her own. Maya had always been the quiet one, the one who took on more responsibility than she could bear, who never asked for help and never complained, even when her own dreams of going to college seemed impossible. Working at the restaurant was her way of helping her mother, of surviving. But despite her hard work and the sacrifice, there was always a subtle sense of being invisible in a world where people like Evelyn and Marcus held all the power, all the wealth. She was used to the condescending smiles, the dismissive glances, and the way some customers looked through her as if she were nothing more than a servant. As she approached their table, she could already feel Evelyn's eyes on her, cold and calculating. The smile Evelyn gave Maya was thin, more out of courtesy than anything else. It was the kind of smile that made Maya's skin crawl. "How may I assist you?" Maya asked, keeping her tone polite despite the unease in her chest. Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, for starters, you can stop staring at me like I'm some kind of zoo animal," she said, her voice laced with a sharpness that made Maya stiffen. "I'm sure you know how to take an order, right?" Marcus shot Evelyn a glance, clearly uncomfortable. "Evelyn, that's enough," he said, trying to smooth over the tension. But Evelyn wasn't having it. She looked at Maya again, her lips curling into a sneer. "I'm not done, Marcus. Look at her, standing there like she owns the place. It's disgusting. You should be ashamed of yourself taking a job like this." Maya's breath caught in her throat, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had dealt with worse, much worse. But there was something about Evelyn's words that hit deeper than the usual insults. Maybe it was the casual way she dismissed Maya's humanity, as if her presence in that restaurant was some kind of mistake. "Evelyn," Marcus said, his voice tight now. "Stop it. I don't want to hear another word." Evelyn, however, was on a roll. She ignored him completely. "It's people like her who make me sick," she muttered, loud enough for Maya to hear. "Always trying to be part of the elite, pretending like they belong in these places when we both know they don't." Maya's hands clenched, her nails digging into her palms as she tried to hold back the rising wave of anger. She had always been taught to never react, to never let the world see how much it hurt. But the words were cutting deep today. She turned to Marcus, trying to remain professional. "Is there anything else I can get you?" she asked, though her voice was slightly strained. Marcus, who had been silent through the whole exchange, finally spoke up. "No," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think we're fine." As Maya turned to walk away, her heart was pounding in her chest. The weight of Evelyn's cruelty hung heavy in the air, and for a moment it felt like the whole restaurant had gone silent. But just as she reached the kitchen door, she heard Marcus's voice again. "Maya," he called. Maya hesitated. She didn't want to look back, but something in his voice made her stop. When she turned, Marcus was staring at her, his expression unreadable. "You don't deserve that," he said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. Maya's breath hitched, but she said nothing. Instead, she nodded stiffly and disappeared into the kitchen. The following weeks were nothing short of awkward. Marcus continued to come to the restaurant with Evelyn, but this time he kept his interactions with Maya to a minimum, avoiding eye contact when he could. But every time he saw her, a part of him felt a strange pull, something deeper than mere attraction. There was something in Maya's eyes that he couldn't ignore. Evelyn, however, grew more and more dismissive. Every time she came into the restaurant, she found some new way to insult Maya, commenting on her appearance, her accent, her humble background. It was as if Evelyn enjoyed belittling her, finding power in it. But then, something unexpected happened. Marcus began noticing things that he hadn't before. The way Evelyn spoke to other people, the way she dismissed them, the way she treated people like Maya, those who didn't belong in her world. The more he saw, the more he realized that Evelyn was not the woman he thought she was. He began to sneak away from her, finding reasons to visit the restaurant when she wasn't around. He made excuses, finding little reasons to drop by just to see Maya. And each time, his feelings grew stronger, his desire to know her more intense. Maya, however, remained cautious. She had no idea what Marcus saw in her, a poor black waitress. He had everything, wealth, status, influence. She was just Maya, just a girl trying to survive. But Marcus couldn't stay away. Slowly, he started to understand the truth about himself, about his fiancée, and about Maya. And when he finally found out the depths of Evelyn's cruelty, everything changed. As the days passed, Marcus found himself at the restaurant more often, under the guise of business meetings or casual stops after work. He tried to keep his visits discreet, but with each visit, his feelings for Maya deepened. The more he learned about her, the warmth in her eyes, the kindness that radiated from her despite the harshness she'd endured, the more he saw her as someone worthy of his attention, far beyond the role of a humble waitress. Maya, on the other hand, remained distant. Though she appreciated Marcus's kindness, she couldn't allow herself to fall for someone like him, someone with power, wealth, and a life she could never truly be a part of. And yet, every time they spoke, every glance they shared, she found herself captivated by him in a way she couldn't quite explain. Evelyn had grown increasingly uncomfortable with Marcus's frequent absences, her sharp eyes always watching him, probing for any hint of weakness. And then, the inevitable happened. One afternoon, as Marcus slipped out of a meeting early and went to the restaurant to see Maya, he walked into an unexpected confrontation. He had been hoping for a few minutes alone with her, to talk, to finally say what he'd been feeling for the past few weeks. But as he entered, he saw Evelyn standing near the counter, her voice raised, her body language tense. Maya stood behind the counter, her back straight, her expression guarded, as Evelyn's insults rained down on her. "You think you're special, don't you?" Evelyn spat. "You think a man like Marcus would ever look at someone like you? You're nothing but a lowly waitress, just like the rest of them. A black girl trying to play above her station. You don't belong here." Maya's fists clenched, but she said nothing. She had been through worse, much worse, and Evelyn's words, though venomous, didn't hold the same sting they once did. But the sight of Evelyn treating her this way in front of everyone, just for the sheer joy of it, made her heart ache. It wasn't just Evelyn's words, it was the belief behind them, the arrogance, the sense of entitlement. Marcus felt a wave of anger and disbelief rise within him, but he stood frozen in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. He didn't know what to do, how to stop this, how to explain what he was feeling. He had never seen Evelyn like this before. "I don't know what you think you're doing here," Evelyn continued, her voice growing louder. "But you'll never fit into his world. No one here wants you, and he'll get tired of playing pretend eventually. You'll see." Maya finally spoke, her voice steady but filled with an inner strength that surprised even her. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about me, Evelyn." Evelyn's eyes flashed with anger, and before she could respond, Marcus stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Enough!" Evelyn turned to him, eyes wide in shock. "Marcus, what are you—" "I said enough," Marcus repeated, his tone firm. "You've crossed a line." Evelyn's face twisted in confusion. "What are you talking about? She's beneath us. She's just—" "I don't care," Marcus snapped. "You've humiliated her, and you've humiliated me. I never realized how small and cruel your world was until I saw it through your eyes. I won't stand for this." Evelyn's expression faltered, her perfect facade cracking for the first time. "Marcus, you don't mean that," she said, her voice wavering. "You don't know what she's really like. She's just a—" "No," Marcus cut in, his voice unwavering. "You're the one who's beneath me, and I'm done pretending." Maya's eyes widened as she processed what Marcus had just said. She had never seen him like this, never imagined he could stand up to Evelyn, especially in a place like this with so many eyes on him. "Marcus, you can't be serious," Evelyn said, a faint tremor in her voice. "This is ridiculous. We've been planning this wedding for months." "I don't care about the wedding," Marcus said, his voice full of finality. "I don't care about any of it anymore. Not if it means standing by while you treat people like that." He turned to Maya, his gaze softening as he looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. "Maya," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I'm sorry for everything. I should have been better. I should have seen you, seen the strength in you. I've been blind." Maya stood frozen, unsure of how to react. Part of her wanted to run, to hide from this whirlwind of emotions. Another part of her wanted to embrace it, to finally allow herself to feel seen, to feel cherished. But she had learned long ago that it wasn't about the grand gestures. It was about survival. It was about protecting herself from the people who wanted to tear her down. Evelyn, on the other hand, was beside herself, her face turning bright red. "You're making a huge mistake," she spat. "You're choosing her over me? After everything we've been through?" Marcus took a deep breath, his voice calm but firm. "Yes, Evelyn. I'm choosing her. I'm choosing someone who knows what it means to struggle, to fight, and to never give up. I'm choosing someone who has more integrity in her pinky finger than you have in your entire body." Maya looked at Marcus, her heart hammering in her chest. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She didn't know what to do with it. But at that moment, she realized something she had never allowed herself to see before. She deserved this. She deserved love, respect, and kindness, not the harshness she had endured. "You don't deserve him," Evelyn snarled, before turning on her heel and storming out of the cafe. The door slammed behind her, and the tension in the air seemed to dissipate. Maya stood there, her mind reeling. Marcus stepped closer to her, his gaze softening. "Maya, But she held up her hand, her voice gentle but firm. "I don't need saving, Marcus. I'm not a damsel in distress. I've fought for everything I have, and I'll continue to fight." Marcus nodded, his heart swelling with admiration for her. "I know. I'm not here to save you. I just want to be with you. For you. No more secrets, no more hiding. I want to be a part of your world, Maya." The power shift was monumental. For so long, Maya had been the one on the outside looking in, invisible in a world that didn't value her. But now, standing in front of Marcus, she realized that she no longer had to fight alone. She had found someone who saw her for who she truly was. And as the evening wore on, the cafe, once filled with the tension of broken dreams, now buzzed with the quiet hum of a new beginning. The restaurant was silent in the aftermath of Evelyn's stormy exit. Marcus and Maya stood across from each other, the weight of everything unsaid between them hanging in the air. Marcus, unsure of what to do next, reached out a hand toward Maya, but he paused before it touched her arm. He wasn't sure if she wanted him near. Not yet, not after everything. Maya looked at him, her gaze steady. She had always prided herself on keeping her emotions in check, but the raw sincerity in Marcus's eyes left her breathless. This wasn't just about the money or the power or the social status that came with Marcus. No, this was something more genuine, something real. "I'm sorry," Marcus said softly, his voice low, filled with regret. "I shouldn't have let it go on as long as it did. I didn't see what was happening. I thought I could make things work with Evelyn, but I was blind. I didn't see you." He hesitated, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't see the woman in front of me, the woman who deserves more." Maya shook her head, a small but bitter smile tugging at her lips. "Marcus, you don't owe me an apology. You didn't know. I don't need your pity." Marcus winced at the word pity, though he understood why she said it. He had treated her as invisible for so long. He had allowed her to be invisible for so long, and he had no excuse for that. "I'm not giving you pity, Maya," he said, his voice stronger now. "I'm giving you respect. I'm giving you the truth. I see you now. I see who you are, and I'm sorry I ever let anyone, including myself, treat you any other way." Her heart ached at his words, but she pushed the feeling down. She had to. This wasn't a fairy tale, and she wasn't going to let herself get swept away by the emotion in his eyes. She had worked too hard for too long to survive, and the last thing she needed was for her past to come rushing back. "I don't know what you want from me, Marcus," she said, her voice tight. "I'm not a part of your world. I can't just forget the way things were. I've spent my whole life trying to survive, trying to make something of myself in a world that doesn't care. I don't need someone to swoop in and make it all better." Marcus's heart sank as he realized just how much he had underestimated Maya, how much he had taken her for granted. She wasn't just a victim in this story. She was a survivor. She had built herself up from nothing, carried burdens that most people couldn't even fathom, and yet here she was, standing in front of him, stronger than anyone he had ever known. "I don't want to change you, Maya," Marcus said, his voice filled with intensity. "I don't want to save you. I want to be with you. I want to walk beside you through all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. You're more than the job you have. You're more than your past. You're the woman I want." Maya's eyes softened, though she still held herself back. She couldn't let herself fall for him. Not this easily. Not after all the years she had spent fighting alone. But deep down, a part of her wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love, real love, could be so simple. "I don't know if I can believe that yet," she said softly. "But I'll try. I'll try to believe you." Marcus nodded, a small but sincere smile crossing his lips. "That's all I ask." For the next few days, Marcus continued his visits to the cafe, but this time the atmosphere was different. It wasn't just about Evelyn's absence. It was about the quiet, unspoken bond that was forming between him and Maya. They talked more, shared small moments, and while there were still doubts in Maya's heart, she couldn't deny that Marcus was different from any man she'd ever met. He didn't treat her like a charity case or a conquest. He treated her like an equal. But as their connection deepened, Evelyn's bitterness simmered beneath the surface, ready to explode. A week later, Evelyn reappeared. But she wasn't the same woman. The coldness in her eyes had deepened, and there was something darker about her presence now. She walked into the restaurant with the confidence of someone who had nothing to lose, and everyone in the room seemed to feel it. The air grew thick with tension as she approached Marcus's table, where he sat alone, reading a newspaper. "I've been looking for you," Evelyn said, her voice almost sweet, though there was an edge to it that made Marcus's skin crawl. "I thought we should talk." Marcus put down the paper and sighed. He knew exactly what this was about, but he wasn't about to let her control the situation any longer. "I don't think there's anything left to talk about, Evelyn," he said calmly. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You think you've won, don't you? That you found some poor little girl to console your conscience? You think she's worth it?" Marcus felt his temper flare, but he kept his voice even. "You don't know anything about her, Evelyn. You don't know anything about what she's been through or what she's capable of. So don't pretend like you do." Evelyn laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "You've really fallen for her, haven't you? The poor black girl with nothing to her name. It's pathetic. You think she's a prize? You think you can change her? You can't. She's beneath you." Marcus stood, his hands clenched at his sides. "You're wrong, Evelyn. You've never understood a thing about me. And you've never understood anything about Maya." But Evelyn wasn't done. "I'm warning you, Marcus. She's not who you think she is. She's hiding something dangerous. And you'll regret this. I promise you." Her words hung in the air, but Marcus didn't flinch. He had already made his choice. Maya was not just his choice. She was his future. Evelyn's eyes flashed with fury as she turned on her heel and stormed out of the cafe. But Marcus didn't follow her. He knew that this wasn't over, that Evelyn's threats would only get worse. But now, Marcus wasn't afraid of her. He was afraid of losing Maya. It wasn't long before Evelyn's threats started to escalate. The subtle remarks and passive-aggressive comments had grown into something more dangerous. Maya could feel the tension building, but she tried to push it aside, focusing on the work she loved. However, one evening after finishing her shift, Maya felt the weight of Evelyn's presence in the restaurant again. As she walked to the back to grab her purse, she noticed Jacob, one of her colleagues, leaning against the counter, watching her with an odd expression. His usually laid-back demeanor was replaced with a look of concern. "Maya, you can't leave with that purse," Jacob said urgently, his voice low enough to avoid being overheard. Maya raised an eyebrow, confused. "What do you mean? I'm just going to head out. I've got to get home." Jacob's eyes darted around to make sure no one was listening. "Listen to me. You need to stay here for a minute. There's something I need to show you, something you need to see before you leave." Maya frowned, sensing the unease in Jacob's tone. "Jacob, what's going on? What do you mean?" "I'm just tired from the shift. Is everything okay?" Jacob took a deep breath. Not really. I've been watching Evelyn. She's up to something. I don't know all the details, but I think she's planning something big. Something that's going to involve you." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Without saying another word, Jacob motioned for her to follow him. He led her behind the counter, out of view of the rest of the cafe. There, he opened her purse without hesitation. Maya's pulse quickened. She hadn't expected this. When he opened the purse, he pulled out a small, unmarked vial. His hand shook slightly, and Maya's stomach dropped as she realized the gravity of the situation. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. "What is that? What's going on, Jacob?" "Evelyn planted this in your purse," he said, showing her the vial. "She's trying to frame you. I saw her slip it in earlier tonight while you were in the kitchen. She's going to have you arrested for possession. I heard her talking to the cops. She's already made her move. The police will be here any minute." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "What? She planted this? Why would she do that?" Jacob nodded gravely. "She's been acting strange for weeks, but tonight I saw her slipping around, making sure the path was set for you to be framed. She's been planning this for a while, Maya. But she didn't count on me seeing her. I've been watching her, and I recorded it." With trembling hands, Jacob pulled out his phone and showed her a video. It was clear, though slightly shaky. The footage showed Evelyn's hand slipping the vial into Maya's purse when no one was looking, and then Evelyn calmly walking away as if nothing had happened. Maya felt the room spin. Her hands shook as she looked at the video. "I can't believe this. She's trying to ruin me." "You can't leave with that purse," Jacob said urgently, grabbing her hand. "You need to stay here. I've already contacted the cops, and they're on their way. But Evelyn will stop at nothing to get you arrested. You need to wait. Don't go out there." Maya's heart was racing as everything hit her. She had been walking around completely unaware, not knowing what Evelyn was setting up for her. The entire scenario felt unreal, as if she were trapped in someone else's nightmare. "Thank you, Jacob," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Jacob's eyes softened. "I didn't want to see this happen to you. You deserve better than this. You deserve the truth to come out." Before they could say anything else, Maya heard the sound of the restaurant door opening, and she saw Evelyn walk in, flanked by 2 police officers. Maya's stomach turned, knowing that Evelyn was about to spring her trap. Evelyn's cold smile as she walked past the counter sent a shiver down Maya's spine. "Maya, I'm glad you're still here," Evelyn said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I've been waiting for you." Maya stepped back, her pulse quickening, but Jacob stood firm, positioning himself between her and Evelyn. The officers followed Evelyn, their eyes scanning the room with a practiced air of authority. "Officers," Evelyn said smoothly, "this woman has been walking around with illegal substances in her possession. I believe she's carrying drugs, and I'd like you to search her purse." The officers nodded, looking at Maya with serious expressions. "We'll need to do a search, ma'am," one of the officers said, his voice flat and professional. But just as one of the officers reached for Maya's purse, Jacob stepped forward, holding up his phone. "I don't think you need to search her," Jacob said, his voice firm, "because I've already seen what's inside her purse." The officer paused, looking confused. "What are you talking about?" Jacob pressed play on his phone, showing the officers the video of Evelyn placing the vial in Maya's purse. The footage was clear, and the officers were silent as they watched. Evelyn's face drained of color as she watched the video unfold. She sputtered, her hands trembling as she tried to speak. This is all a mistake. She's lying. Before she could continue, the officer looked at her, his expression hardening. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempting to frame this woman and for tampering with evidence." Maya stood there, her heart pounding, as she realized that Evelyn's web of lies was coming apart at the seams. The officers moved toward Evelyn, cuffing her as she continued to protest. "This isn't over! You can't do this!" Holding in front of him, his eyes widened in shock. "Maya, he said, rushing toward her. "What's going on? Are you okay?" Maya nodded, her heart still racing. "I'm fine, thanks to Jacob." Marcus looked between her and Jacob, then took Maya's hand gently. "I'm so sorry for what you've been through, Maya. I should have seen this sooner." Maya smiled softly. "It's not your fault. But it's over now." And as the restaurant returned to some semblance of normal, with the police taking Evelyn away and the staff breathing a collective sigh of relief, Maya realized that this was the moment when everything changed. She wasn't just the victim anymore. She had taken control, and in doing so, had found the strength she never knew she had. She didn't need to run anymore. She was free. Subscribe and follow for more thrilling stories.